It is a heinous crime sparked.
It's a us.truecrime at us.truecrime.
Police say by a husband enraged that his wife might be having an affair. What happened next, we have to warn you, is so violent it may not be appropriate for some viewers.
This woman has 2 black
Holy
eyes.
shit.
The result, cops say, of a beating by her enraged husband after he discovered she was having an affair with a co-worker. What authorities say happened next is shocking.
This case is especially heinous and gruesome.
31-year-old Brittany Barron told police her husband Armando was looking through her phone when he found text messages from her co-worker Jonathan Emerald. They both worked at a medical supply company in New Hampshire. Brittany said what followed was a violent assault, with her husband beating her about the face repeatedly and strangling her so hard she says she passed out. Then her husband texted her lover pretending to be Brittany and lured him to meet at a park in the woods.
Holy
When
shit.
Emerald showed up for the middle of the night rendezvous with his alleged lover, a grim fate awaited him. That's when Brittany told investigators her husband turned and shot Jonathan 3 times. Twice in the chest and once in the head. The couple then drove 200 miles with the body into the deep forests of New Hampshire, where the husband ordered Brittany to cut off Jonathan's head with a saw so that he could not be identified, according to court documents.
The defendant decapitated Jonathan, wrapped his head in a tarp, and placed it in a grave.
The gruesome crime was exposed when Fish and Game officers happened to come upon the scene. Armando Barron has pled not guilty to murder. His wife was charged with falsifying physical evidence. She pled not guilty when she appeared in court, and you could still see those 2 black eyes.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Her lawyer, Richard Guerriero.
Everything that the state alleges that Miss Barron did, she did under duress, and I mean under duress, meaning direct fear from her for her life.
It is a heinous crime sparked, police say, by a...
Damn, holy shit. You can obviously, she was pressured by her husband to do that. These comments are... Wow. I'm not going to waste my time reading them or showing them to you. I just quickly glanced at them because I have them like right here and I can see them on my screen. And let me tell you, it ain't even fucking worth it. Because a lot of guys like to talk with their fingers. And it's really cool to say they think they're killing and they're eating with what they're saying. And they sound so tough and rough and... And those are the same type of dudes, like I mentioned before, with that the case that we watched of the guy that put his girlfriend in like a freezer or some shit like that. And she ended up surviving. He thought he had killed her. He was just laughing there and... all tough and rough until he was read the verdict and he had that dumb confused look on his face and wondering why and all this, and everything really changed from a happy-go-lucky smile to someone worried about his future all of a sudden. When I read these type of comments, that's what I'm reminded of. It's these dudes that will say anything here, but yeah, pretty horrible case in and of itself. You can obviously tell that this person was pressured into committing this crime. If someone you're with does something like that, do they cheat on you and shit, just fucking leave. That's it. There's so many fish out there. Listen, prison is not worth for anyone. Prison is not, it's not worth it, and it's not worth going to because of someone else at all. Nah, I'm good with that. I'm cool. Alright, we'll watch 2 more videos. Let's move on to the next one.
It took them...
This is Making a True Crimer 2. At Making a True Crimer 2.
29 years to find out who she was. Now the question is, who put her head in that park? Hello, true crimers. This is the case of the Ina Jane Doe. Viewer discretion is advised. It was January 27th, 1993, and it was at the Wayne Fitzgerald State Park, and this is near Ina, Illinois. two like younger girls were walking in the park when they saw something in one of the bushes. And it was kind of on the side of a road within the park. That item that they saw was a human head. Essentially, it was just the skull, so it was like skeletal remains. The rest of that individual's body was never really found. So all they really had to work on was the skull. They were able to tell it was the skull of a female, and they would initially come up with this sketch, which obviously, back then is probably the best they could do. Then they did the whole the clay molds thing to see if they could better replicate what the individual may look like.
I remember hearing about this case.
Came up with. The reason why the head is tilted in this way is because I guess they thought that this individual had an issue with their muscles or something like that caused their head to tilt to the left. But no one ever identified her. No one recognized her, and no one recognized her based on this image either. And so for the next 29 years, her case just went cold. So 29 years later, they reopen her cold case. They have a team of forensic specialists extract DNA from the skull, and they come up with a more, modern image of what the individual may have looked like. But they also run it through the genealogical database and, all that fancy stuff they do now. And they finally came up with a hit. Through that genealogical testing, they came to this woman, Susan Lund. She was 25 years old in 1992 when she disappeared. She lived here in this apartment building with her husband, and they had 3 children.
Really quickly, not to interrupt, his name is Mikey. Not to interrupt Mikey real quick, but crazy how DNA forensics and the being able to investigate crimes through forensics and using DNA, like I just mentioned, started at the beginning of the 90s. So it's not as if there was a whole lot of time that this method was being used beforehand. This is, maybe not now anymore, but 2005, for example, using DNA and analyzing it and extracting from remains and all that only had a decade and a little bit more, maybe less. So that's how new it is, sort of still to us, but because of those advancements in technology and science, go science, we are now able to generate images, make comparisons between the DNA that was extracted from the remains and DNA that's in evidence, or that I don't know, in the store somewhere, whatever the hell you want to call it. But the advancements in science allow us to be able to get to the point where we are now, and it's just great to see. Man, go science. That's I mentioned it before. I mentioned it already in this live stream, but it's just I am so keen on just how important it is for knowledge to be at the forefront of everything. And it's, again, what's allowed us to have science. And science is what allowed us to have all these advancements that we enjoy of. So, moving on. Let's hear what Mikey has to say.
She left the apartment on Christmas Eve 1992 to go walk to the store, and the young mother never came home. She was reported missing pretty much right away, but their investigation really led nowhere. They assumed she just ran off. At one point they suspected, well, maybe her husband did something to her. But the thing is they can prove he was home the entire night she disappeared. He certainly wasn't decapitating her and disposing her body in Illinois, because they lived in Tennessee. So there was no way he did anything to her. So while one mystery is solved, another one remains. The stranger part is that when they found her head, they determined she had been killed about 2 weeks prior to being found, which means she was alive for 2 weeks. They based that off of the fact that this was a busy park and the head was located in an area that people had walked by all the time, and so surely someone would have noticed it. But then you can use that same logic because they said she was decapitated 2 weeks prior to being found, so that's still 2 weeks where her head is in these bushes.
True.
Unless the killer threw her head in there, like literally just maybe a day or so before all of this. But was Susan truly alive for 2 weeks before she was killed and decapitated? That's nobody knows. The mystery is what happened to her that Christmas Eve night in 1992 when she went to the store. Was she kidnapped? Did she run away with someone who was obviously the wrong person? I think they lean more towards she was probably abducted.
I think so too.
But then if that 2 week theory is true, what was happening in that first 2 weeks? Because this is like a month after she disappears when she's found, so, and with the husband basically being cleared, they don't have anyone else. So, if you have any information about the disappearance, abduction, and murder of Susan Lund, please contact the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department at 618-244-8004, and perhaps you can help solve this mystery. It took the...
But one step forward. At least we know who it is. It can give the family some closure. But yeah, I think so too. I'm leaning into the maybe it was an abduction, and yeah, I guess that doesn't constitute for the 2 weeks, but because we've seen so many true crime cases, and there are so many true crime content creators out there talking about so many other different cases, how many have you not heard about that? Person could have been abducted and maybe tortured somewhere, or anything. They drugged her and did whatever they did and dismembered the body and left the head in the park. It's not very far-fetched to think. So I wouldn't put it past whoever committed the crime that's what happened. It sucks that this could well be a cold case and may never be resolved, and the person could have gotten away with it if they're dead now, and if they're still alive, most likely they will be able to get away with it, because it doesn't seem like there's any evidence that could lead to anyone. The husband was already cleared, so damn. Susan Lund, hopefully your family will get even more closure and justice will be served for you. Oh shit.
You're about to watch is extremely...
Okay, this is Crime with Court. This will be the last video we see tonight. At Crime with Court.
disturbing, so watch at your own risk. That was a woman who earlier this month escaped her kidnapper after being held captive for the last year. As seen in the video, she made her escape to a gas station in Burlington County, New Jersey, and following close behind trying to catch her was her abductor. The woman's identity has been withheld for her safety, but her kidnapper is 57-year-old James Perillo Jr. According to authorities, the woman met James at a gas station in New Mexico in February of last year during a cross-country road trip. James told her that his name was Brett Parker and asked her for a ride to Arizona, in which she agreed. According to her, for the first month they were in a consensual relationship, but it wasn't long after that he began assaulting her. He took away her phone and debit cards and isolated her from her family. He then spent the next year holding the woman captive and traveling with her throughout the country. In the weeks before she escaped, the two had visited a gas station in New Jersey that was close to a room that James had rented out in Bass River Township. And it was there that she noticed that the store had an interior deadbolt. It was at this point that she began plotting her escape. The day she escaped, James had been beating and choking her, and she somehow broke free and made a run for it back to that gas station. It was only 42 degrees out, and she was wearing only a t-shirt and shorts with no shoes. When she got inside of the store, she immediately locked the door, and it's a really good thing she did because James was right behind her. Luckily, he didn't get in though. The woman told the attendant that she had been kidnapped and held captive for the last year and that she needed help. She had deep cuts and marks on her neck. James was caught and arrested that same day, which was February 7th. He's being held at the Burlington County Jail with no bail because, according to authorities, they found evidence online that he may have had other victims in the past. He's been charged with first-degree kidnapping, second-degree strangulation, and aggravated assault, amongst many other charges. If convicted, he faces up to 47 years in prison and a fine of nearly $500,000. What you're about to...
Holy shit. Damn, she's so fucking lucky. Thank goodness she closed that door. Who knows? That face. Look at that face. And then he would have really... Yeah, he would have really done a number on her. He was holding her captive. That is insanity.